KENPO Kenya, KARIANGOFO at KARIAKO base during the First World War. That is the story that KARIANGOFO is going to tell KADZO of what happened to our great grandfathers. The European powers decided to divide Africa. Yes, it was a property. It's like when you go hunting and you have killed an antelope, then one is talking of, I'll take the rump. Another one is talking, I'll take the ribs. The other one is talking of, I'll take the liver, and such a like thing. So the African continent was demarcated to the colonizing powers at that time. And in East Africa, Uganda, because of the king structure, and Kenya, because it was on the way to Uganda, and also of the Wanga king structure, had been put under the British rule, because the British saw that the systems almost merged, that of a king ruling with unchecked authority. And Tanganyika was under the Germans. Then the war in Europe broke, and it was the Germans against the others. You know the story of the First World War. You can find it in the history books. The colonial masters started marshalling manpower for their war machine. Those who were of German origin in Africa had their German forces here, and they started organizing the Africans who would carry their goods and who would fight the war. So did it happen to Kenya and Uganda and the rest of the countries. In Kenya, the African soldiers were called askaris, and the white soldiers called themselves Johnny. So we hear the word Johnsies. I wanted to find out how come that the white soldiers are called Johnnies. And I realized that it was a common name one time in Europe, and it was a reference during the American War that when somebody was on the opposite side, you would find simply called the Johnnies, those who are on that side as you are battling. But I also found that a common name one time, common baptism name, was Johannes in Europe. And from that name came the name John. And from that John came the war name, the nickname, the names they would call one another, Johnny. So the Johnnies and the Askaris were preparing to fight this big war. With us, the British and the other soldiers, we had to fight towards the Tanzanian side. Tanganyika, by that time, it was Tanganyika, and then Zanzibar and Pemba belonged to the Sultan of Oman. So those ones were not considered to be in the same league. And they camped at a place in Nairobi and in different places. In Nairobi, where the KARIAKO came, because it was difficult for us in our pronunciation in our mother tongue to say KURIAKO. We knew they were the KARIAKO, and we could not also pronounce KARIAKO. So we called them KARIANGOFO. And because these people camped in a certain place before setting out for the war, the place where the KARIAKO settled was called KARIAKO. So if you happen to visit Nairobi, when you hear KARIAKO, that is where they set base before they would move out to go and fight. And the Africans had been put in reserves, and then the colonial masters had taken the lands they wanted that fertile, divided the way they wanted, but the division had not gone that much. The Africans were kept in the reserves so that they would not be able to extend to other lands, but they would still stay within their ancestral lands. And the British did not want a direct rule because they did not want repercussions. They wanted the resources, they wanted control, they did not want to keep rushing with the African communities in these places. So they elevated the chiefs who were to control the villages, but they put these chiefs under a district officer. And these people were answerable to the one who was governing the country that time, the British. So it was, Africans, rule yourselves for us, but the resources come to us. But the boss, the ones calling the shots, were the white men. And from the religious, that is when Christianity had just been introduced, people knew that a white man was next to God. So they feared. But for the first time, a war was threatening. And now they needed the black men to do the carrying and the fighting. There was need for manpower. So the African forces, also the Askaris, joined them. They were taught how to carry goods in a proper manner. And they were taught how to fire the rifle, how to use a bayonet, which was called that time Bennett. So those who fought that war know the rifle, they knew to cock, they knew to load, and they knew how to use the Bennett. They were taught also about entrenchment, just like the Romans used to teach their soldiers. And the war began. This time it was the colonizer and the colonized, because you spoke their language, and when we were colonized, we were told we were being protected, so we were protectorate. So the protectors and those people they were protecting went to war together. You are an Askari, the other one was Johnny. And as the war progressed, the Askari realized one thing. Some of the colonizers, the Johnnies, would fear certain situations. They would flee, and it would be the black Askari handling the situation. At first it was a shock. Then they realized these are just normal human beings like us in each and every aspect. The battle raged on. When it ended, it was time for rewards. They were taken back to the reserves. and the Johnese became lords. The Africans were bitter. They realized that their resources had been taken away. They mounted a resistance. But like they realized that if you put a resistance, they had seen things that had happened in places like Haiti, where the slaves had risen up and overthrown the colonizers. So they realized, if you can't control them from here, give them the government and control from far. And with us got the government, and we had aspirations. And some of those aspirations were met. Some were not met. Because when they left us, but they left the system which many African countries have been trying to break down. So any leader who would come would have to follow their system, meaning that you would have to pay homage to their capital city. That's why all the Francophone countries wanted to identify with Paris, and all the English-speaking countries, if you'd never gone to London, you'd never gone to Britain, if you didn't speak good English, then you were not fit to be called that. And the system, that's why I was telling you, our problem has been the system worldwide. The system was geared towards that. Those who managed to break the system managed to thrive. Those who kept the system had a reflection of what was there. And that is what the Africans, the Kenyans, should try to do. Change the system so that it fits everybody. Because the system that was left was a colonizing system. So you will enter into power. You will not want to colonize. But the way it is structured, you will end up colonizing. That's why in Africa and in East Africa, if we don't change the system, the white colonizer goes, you become a black colonizer. And when somebody else removed that one, he also takes over the place. He becomes a colonizer. And the other one who will say, we want change, remove that one. He removes that one. And which system does he receive? The same system. You remain a colonizer, you become an oppressor of the other black people. So, we've had aspirations, especially the Kenyans. We've gone for the same thing, just the way that KARIANGOFO and the Johnese went to war with winning, and when they came, they had the same dreams, reward. But they realized those who the system favored were rewarded, and they, because they could not fit in the system, could not get the reward. So what is the solution to our problem? Unless there is an overhaul of the system, we shall always keep crying over the same things, because the system will make the one sitting on the seat to colonize you, whether he likes it or not. It will force the other structures to colonize you. That is what it was meant to be. It was meant to colonize you from a distance for the colonizing country. So even when they were not there, because the tribal chiefs had been put together, but the DO would be able to oversee. He was in control. And the others were under the governor. He was in control. The king did not have to be here. We were a province. He did not have to be in Uganda. It was a province. It did not have to be in India. It was a province. But in each and every way, he controlled the system because it was a colonizing system. And the Africans, like Patrice Lumumba and the others who tried to break from the colonizing system, had severe repercussions for daring to want to break the system. So what are we left with? If we don't break the systems, we shall colonize ourselves, we shall fight against ourselves, we shall say certain tribes are taking advantage of us. But they can't help it because it's the system. So what is our enemy? Our enemy is not another tribe. No. Our enemy is not the one sitting on the leadership, be it a president or whatever. No, that's not our enemy. The system will force everything to work in a colonial manner. So, for now, as we fight for what will come during the next election, let's not look at our tribe. That is a mistake we have been making. We want tribe A to be, tribe B to be. No. Let's not look at our parties. Let's look at our individual politicians and how they are willing to break the colonial system and have a democratic system that fits everybody. That is where our problem is. Our problem is not even with the leader. Our problem is with the system, because the system will colonize. Whoever comes there will colonize. And that's why the presidential seat has become something that is fought for. People would even like to shed blood to have the presidential seat, because immediately you sit on it, it gives you the leeway to colonize for those powers. And that's why when people sit, then there are things that you have to obey to those powers now. Those who think alike. So unless the system is broken, we shall remain colonized. Not only by them, because it was a system that was to be used to rule from a distance. We shall still be colonized, ruled from outside without realizing. And we shall heap all the blame on whoever will be on the seat and the tribe of that person at that particular moment. That is what happens. That's what has been happening. And we shall also defend ourselves in the tribes. And those who the system has favored will cover themselves with the tribe, will cover themselves with the party. So, should we only base our thinking on the parties? What are our aspirations? What have we achieved? We were to fight illiteracy. Some people still got now to that. Some people, there was a time when we were talking with students, because I've been a teacher. And there were times when we would do teaching practice in regular schools. And some would tell us openly, the key to any progress, to anything, was education. But when they realized we'd gotten education, they changed the key. So now you go, the key can't open. It's not supposed to be that way. It's not even the education that is the problem. Knowledge is very important. But so long as the system remains the way it is, whoever ascends to the top seat will be forced by the system to colonize. Solution is the system. It's not the people or the person of the system. Once you change the system, then you can influence, you can talk to those people. Because in the normal working, you are representative in parliament, you are MCA, you are MP, you are governor, you are senator, you are president. People assigned ministries are supposed to be your servants. But in the colonial system, they are the masters. That's why we shiver when you are going to see the MCA. When you want to, you are all, sometimes you are not even able to talk, because instead of they being your servants, now they become your masters. So let's focus on the change of the system. Change the system, you have equity all over. That is my take for now. In the footsteps of the KARIANGOFO and what they learned when they interacted with the Johnese in the war, they realized that the Johnese were just human like themselves. But they had an advantage in that the colonizing power had set a system. Let's change the system, and we shall all be happy. That's my take for now.